In this video, we're going to explore the Revolve tool. With the Revolve tool, you draw a profile on one of the origin planes, or any plane really, and then you spin it around an axis. There's actually a lot of really fun and interesting things that you can create with Revolve, and we're going to explore some of them here. First, let's go to the origin, and I'm going to choose the XY plane, or the front surface. So I have my front facing me, XY plane. I'm going to create a sketch. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to actually draw a line that I'm going to revolve around, but you can also revolve around any of the axes as well. So I'm going to draw a line, and I'm just going to draw on the right side of my y-axis here. Straight line, about an inch long. I'm just going to put 1 inch. And I'm going to come up, and I'm going to come up 0.25, and I'm going to grab my arc tool, and I'm going to lock onto the top of the line here and click, and I'm going to come out 0.25, and I'm going to arc this up until I get this little symbol right here. It means that it's tangent to that line right there. And I'm going to click on the end of the arc here again, and I'm just going to come down a little ways. Don't worry too much about the angle, but just come out around 0.5 inches and come down about, let's just say, 165 degrees, somewhere around there. Don't worry if it's not exactly right. Click, and I'm going to curve this down to about a 0.396, 0.338, somewhere in the 0.3 range, an arc like that. And I'm going to grab my line tool, lock onto the end of this arc, pull my line straight across, click, and come down and end. So now I've got a complete profile. Got an arc on the top, an arc on the bottom, and then coming straight across and along here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is draw a line out here, just straight up and down. And this line could be anywhere. It could be up here, it could be down there. It doesn't have to be very long, just a little line. That's what this thing is going to revolve around. Okay? I'm going to dimension this line, the distance from here to here, as 0.5. And I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Go to Isometric View. Now when I go to Revolve, it's going to ask me what profile do I want to revolve. Well, I want to revolve this profile. It's really the only profile we can revolve. We could have multiple profiles, but this is the one that we like, or the only one that we have. So I'm going to click on this profile. Then I'm going to click on the axis, and I'm going to choose this line as the axis. And so we've now created kind of a frisbee shape, but something rather interesting. It could be applied in different ways, but this profile basically spun around this middle point right here. I'm going to hit Cancel and hit Revolve again. I can select this profile, and I don't have to select the line here for my axis. I do have to choose axis. I could choose this line right here at the end of my profile. Now when it spins around, there's no hole in the middle. Okay. I'm going to hit Cancel. Go to Revolve, click this profile. I'm going to choose the axis as this bottom axis right here. And look at the different shape that we got. Kind of like a vase or something. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. But notice that the same profile has been able to create multiple shapes. It all depends on what you use as the axis. Okay. Let me go to Revolve again, choose this profile as my axis. I'll choose the back line. And now look at the shape that we've got. So this one shape has given us a lot of different possibilities. Revolves are sometimes hard to think about the possibilities or think about what you're going to be creating, but they come in great handy when creating wheels, hubcaps, vases, anything that's symmetrical and has a radial pattern to it. I'm going to hit Cancel again. Go to Revolve, choose your profile, Now, when I choose axis this time, I'm going to choose this axis, and notice that it didn't give me a preview of what's going on. When I hit OK, it's going to tell me that it can't revolve this. The reason that it can't revolve is because the axis of the revolution crosses the profile. Or in other words, because this shape has to spin around itself, this part of the shape is going to have to be above and below this axis line. It can't do that. It can't cross over itself. It has to be able to free move all the way around. So if you're ever trying to spin around an axis where part of the profile has to run into itself, it's not going to work. Okay? Let me go back and edit this sketch. So double click sketch 1. And now what I want to do is grab my line tool, and I'm going to draw another line. Instead of this one, I'm just going to draw somewhere in between the profile and the axis. I'm going to draw a line at an angle, 52, 45, somewhere around there, somewhere in the 40s or 50s. So there's my axis. I'm going to hit Finish Sketch, and I'm going to go to Revolve, choose my profile, choose the axis, and I'm going to choose this axis right here. Now look at what's happened. The entire profile has been revolved on a, somewhere between 40 and 50 degree change because it's spinning around this line instead of this line. So now we've got this interesting shape. It's kind of like a bowl shape on the one side and the kind of cone shape on the other. I'm going to hit cancel. Go back into my sketch. I'm going to delete this line. I'm going to grab my line tool again. This time I'm going to draw in the other direction. So I draw an angled line here. Hit Finish Sketch. I'm going to go to Revolve, choose my profile, choose the axis as this diagonal line, and then we've got this kind of a profile. So now it's coned upwards instead of downwards, and we've got kind of an interesting shape on the inside. Kind of like a megaphone or a speaker cone, something like that. So this one profile, we've been able to create multiple things. Now drawing on an angle like this is nice because it makes some interesting shapes, but it's kind of hard to maintain because now this thing is at an angle. And, well, just for future reference, you're going to have to make sure that you figure out what this angle is so that if you're going to attach it to anything, you've got it going at the right angle. But really good if you're creating something that's going to be inserted into an assembly later. Okay? So, I'm going to right-click Sketch 1 and delete it. And I'm going to go to my XZ plane. Click on that. And I'm going to make a rectangle right in the middle. So wherever your middle point is, where the axes intersect, I'm going to make a square, and I'm going to make it 0.75, tab, and 0.75, so that we've got a perfect square. And I'm going to go to dimension, and I want to dimension halfway between the center so that this square is centered right over the top of this axis. So I'm going to dimension from here to here, and I'm going to make this 0.75 divided by 2 because I want it to be halfway between 0.75. It's 0.375 by the way. Now I'm going to dimension from here to here and do the same thing. 0.75 divided by 2. Now I've got my square centered perfectly. Finish sketch. Now the reason that I had us do that is because I'm going to do a revolve and I want to use the y-axis as my axis instead of drawing an axis. You can also create axes, and we're going to go over that later. So I'm going to go to extrude, and I've extruded the square up. I'm going to extrude it 1.5 inches. Okay. Now I've shown you the regular revolve, just revolving from a profile. Now I want to show you how to cut revolve something. So in order to do this thing that we're about to do, I want to create a new plane. So I'm going to go to my planes, and I'm going to choose two collinear edges, or sorry, coplanar edges. And I'm going to choose this edge that's in the front and this edge that's in the back. And now if I look, I've got a plane that cuts this thing right down the middle. I'm going to make a sketch on this plane right here. It's going to turn it sideways for some reason. Don't worry about that. Alright. Now I'm going to hit F7 on my keyboard so that I can see through this object. That cuts through it so we can see the insides. Now we're going to go to project geometry, and I'm going to project geometry of this right side line and the baseline here as well. So that I've got this whole thing squared off. I'm going to grab my point tool, and I'm going to put 3 points along this line, making sure that I'm locked on the line each time. And I'm going to dimension from this point to the edge here, and I'm going to make this 0.25. And I'm going to dimension this point to this point, and I'm going to make this 0.5. But now this point has gone too far over and it's crossed over this one. So I'm going to escape out of my dimensioning tool, and I'm going to grab this point and slide it down the line so it's on the other side. And I'm going to go to dimension, and dimension from this point to this point, and I'm going to make it 0.25. Now I'm going to grab my arc tool, and I'm going to lock onto this point right here, and this point right here, and I'm going to make my arc 0.25. And I'm going to grab my point tool again, and I'm going to click my point onto this arc right here, making sure that I click on the actual arc itself, so make sure you're snapped onto the arc before you make the point. And I'm going to dimension from this point to this line, and I'm going to make this distance 0.15. Now I'm going to grab my arc tool again, and I'm going to lock onto this point, and lock onto this point. I'm going to make my arc, and I'm going to make it 0.3. Now I'm going to use the trim tool, and I'm just going to trim off this little piece right here so that I just have this nice revolving piece right here. I'm going to grab my line tool, and all I want to do is just close off this shape, but I want it to kind of protrude out a little bit. So I'm going to lock onto this point and just draw a straight line. It doesn't really matter how long, just out here somewhere. And then come across until I lock onto the other side, and come up and lock onto there. Now I've got this shape right here that I can revolve. Now I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. So now we've got this profile and it's intersecting our object here. I'm going to go to Revolve. I'm going to choose the profile, this profile right here. And I'm going to choose the axis. I'm going to choose the y-axis. If you hover over these axes, it'll show you what they look like down here. I want the y-axis because it splits this thing right down the middle. So right now, our profile is basically creating an intersect here. If I were to go to cut, then you'll notice that this thing is now being cut, kind of like a chair leg. If I were to go to intersect, then it would only keep what's inside that profile. And you can see everything inside the profile here is now gone. Well, the profile basically scoops up and keeps everything that's inside it. Let's hit OK really quick. And you can see that we've got an interesting shape here because it has only basically kept what was inside the profile, and everything outside the profile was taken away. We learned about the intersect in extrude as well. Alright, I want to right click this revolution and edit the feature. And I don't want to do a intersect, I want to do a cut so that I keep my original extrusion, and I'm just going to cut this so it looks kind of like a chair leg. And hit OK. So now we've got this interesting piece right here. I'm going to make one more sketch on the XY plane, and I'm going to hit F7 so I can see through this thing, and I'm going to project the geometry of this top line right here. Now I'm going to grab my line tool and lock onto the middle of this line, and the middle is going to lock on green when I'm onto it. Remember, if you ever lock onto the middle, you cannot ever move this line. So if I make this line, and I'm going to make it 0.5, and I'm going to go to dimension this line to the edge here, I can't change this. It said adding this dimension will over-constrain the sketch. Okay? Because I've locked this line onto the middle, it cannot move from back to forth. But if I were to make a line somewhere along the line that wasn't locked onto the middle, now I can dimension this from one side to the other. Don't worry about making this line. I just wanted to kind of go over that really quick. Okay, I'm going to delete this. Alright, 0.5 up. Next I'm going to grab my arc tool, and I'm going to lock onto the top of this line right here. And I'm also going to lock on to this right corner, and I'm just going to create an arc. I'm not going to enter any value in for it. And I'm going to dimension the center of this arc to this corner right here, and I'm going to make this number 0.345. And that should give us a dimension of 0.35 for our arch, which is exactly what we want. Hit Finish Sketch, and I'm going to hit Revolve. Profile was chosen automatically, but you can go and choose it if it doesn't. It's the only profile available, and that's why it chose it. Hit Axis. I'm going to choose the axis of this line that I just made, and now I've got kind of this bold top here. Hit OK. Now we've got an interesting shape, kind of a chair leg with, I guess it kind of looks like a donut on top. Alright, let's go ahead and save this as Revolve. Now we're going to do one more thing with this revolution. Double click the revolution 2, or we can just right click and go to Edit Feature. There's also the extends options that we have, just like we did for extrude. I'm going to go to full, and there's to next, between, just like we had in the extrude, but we're going to go to angle. And right now, we've got it at a 90-degree angle. And so this is what it looks like at a 90-degree angle. Okay? So we are going to have this go at a 90-degree angle, and that's going to be our finished product. So hit OK. And this is what we've got. It looks kind of funky, yes, but it's just a practice to see what these things do. The last thing we want to do is turn the visibility off of work plane 1. And again, whenever we have planes or sketches that we're using to build other things, we don't ever want to delete them. We just want to turn the visibility off. So go ahead and turn that off. And now our part is ready to save as Revolve.